Don't worry, folks, it is not just Vancouver, Detroit, or Montreal that has been getting into the trade discussions as of late. We have ourselves another update involving 3 teams, 2 of them orange, 1 of them red, and I wanted to dive into this because, for me, as a fantasy owner of this guy, I am looking for that Mackenzie Blackwood-esque revival and ultimate push into prosperity for this 2024-2025 season on this player, because today we are heading over to the sunny state of California, talking about Disneyland, just a few miles of a drive west of the Honda Center, and we're talking about goaltender John Gibson. Now, the interesting thing about John Gibson is he's been on the trade block linked to this particular other orange team for so long now that it might even be seen as overkill to talk about John Gibson and the topic at bay. But earlier this morning on Elliotte Friedman'S 32 Thoughts podcast, we had ourselves a trade update regarding John Gibson that finally starts to give us some more clarity on the situation here. So, as always, we will leave a link in the description to the 32 Thoughts article, but linked first in the description is our ExpressVPN affiliate page. Go out there and use it to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel all in the process. John Gibson, however, has been fantastic this season, and I say that as somebody who picked him up in fantasy this season after he came back from injury. He hasn't necessarily been the healthiest all season, and with him splitting the load in Anaheim with young goaltender Lucas Dostal, it's fair to say that his workload hasn't necessarily been as heavy as it's been in the past. John Gibson this season has a .915 save percentage and a .270 goals against average. This is the best season he has had since 2018-19. He has always been solid, but the Ducks have been pretty crap in front of him the past few years. So, with John Gibson finally getting into a spot where he can string together consistently good numbers, have these good relief performances, still come out with good save percentage numbers, even though he's losing games, at $6.4 million a year till the end of 2027, you can say that Gibson is a prime trade candidate. The Anaheim Ducks aren't really fighting for much at this point in the season. They are one of the most mid teams in the NHL, but John Gibson is a name that has been teetering the trade market for a while now. It's always a constant story. Oh, he's going to go to Edmonton. It's the Edmonton Oilers. It's the Oilers. It's always the Oilers, right? But with conversations like this being discussed on Oilers Nation, you're kind of starting to see some desperation here from the fans. It's kind of sad that I have more faith in Pickard than I do Skinner as it stands. This was posted by Schmitty the Goat 3 days ago, and a lot of people in the replies are like, yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I want a goalie who doesn't need 30 minutes of game time to warm up. I'm still leery of jumping into saying Pickard could be the number 1. I've seen a few scary moments with him in a few games. The team has scored and bailed him out on occasion, though. This is making me miss Mikko Koskinen. And so, confidence in the goaltending in Edmonton isn't really all too high right now. And with Pierre LeBrun saying this 3 days ago, I do believe that John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks would waive his no trade to go to Edmonton, so there's that. But it sure doesn't sound like Bowman sees goaltending as an area of concern. A lot of people went out there and replied, saying, okay, really? Like, no way. Stu Skinner is not that guy. And so when we go over to Elliotte Friedman'S 32 Thoughts podcast, this is what he said on the show earlier this morning. One of the things I had heard during the season was that John Gibson's preference were Edmonton and Carolina, Friedman reported. Carolina, that dance with Gibson has been on and off. I didn't see it, but someone told me there was talk about the Oilers and Gibson. The one thing I kind of heard is that Gibson wants a situation where he's going to be the number 1, and it's sort of going to be his job, Friedman continued. He wants to be the guy. I don't know if a Gibson-Skinner duo is going to work for him. I think Gibson wants the chance to go on a run and prove he can be the guy on a top team. So if it's a Gibson-Skinner combo, I'm not sure that's going to appeal to him. And so, even though Stuart Skinner is a Stanley Cup finalist caliber goaltender, okay, maybe not caliber. He was that last year, literally speaking. He made the finals, but I think night in, night out this season, the goaltending situation in Edmonton has been such a hot potato that at this point, I think a lot of Oilers fans would be okay with the idea of saying, okay, just trade Skinner over to Anaheim. let's do a Gibson for Skinner swap, and Edmonton will add on a bunch of assets because Gibson is obviously more valuable than what Stu Skinner has provided this season, and then we can go with a Gibson-Pickard pairing. That doesn't need to be a 1A, 1B thing, it can just be Gibson riding the whole way through, right? But Skinner, I mean, he is the guy right now in Edmonton, right? Does he have any trade protection on his contract? Let's go out there and check out Puckpedia on that. No, he doesn't have any trade protection. That's great. He can get moved at any time, and he's making $2.6 million. So that's not too bad, right? I mean, $2.6 million. You're getting $2.6 million caliber goaltending out of this guy. He's at a 900 save percentage on the year. He had a 914 a few seasons ago, but he certainly has not been the main guy good enough to lead this team to the promised land. And I say that knowing that he only allowed 2 goals in the Stanley Cup Final Game 7 last year. That was fine, but the team did go down 3-0 in that series with multiple under 900 save percentage games out of Skinner, so can you really win a Stanley Cup with this dude? I don't know. I think a lot of people would assume that John Gibson is a more confident option if you were to place them side by side, head-to-head against each other, but in the Carolina Hurricanes system, which is also listed here as a trade preference spot for Gibson, I do kind of wonder what that's going to look like. I mean, you think about in Edmonton, okay, they need goaltending help. Skinner and Pickard aren't really the best. But if you go over to Carolina, I mean, I'm thinking about the duo, the trio that they've got over there. You've got Frederik Andersen, who of course has been battling injuries this season. I mean, he's healthy right now, but he did take an extended amount of time off in November and December. He's been fine. 914 save percentage, 9 games played this season. It's Freddie Andersen. What else can you expect out of this guy? But Pyotr Kochetkov has been the main dude with a 904 save percentage. I kind of wonder if John Gibson goes over to Carolina. I don't know if he's really dethroning Freddie or Kochetkov. Kochetkov has been okay this season. Gibson's numbers are better, but he has had the majority of the workload with this team, with Spencer Martin and Justin Tokarski coming in 3rd and 5th place, that I wonder if John Gibson is good enough to dethrone these dudes, especially since Freddie Andersen's healthy now. I don't know if there's a real goaltending opportunity for Gibson to head over to Carolina and take over that spot. Not unless the Ducks take Freddie Andersen back, because he was a Duck for a long time before going over to Toronto, and they're able to demote Kochetkov full-time to a secondary backup option. I just don't see it happening, really, with the Carolina Hurricanes. However, I will say, Carolina is the inferior team versus Edmonton this season in 2024-2025. Their records are really similar. They're both top 10 teams in the NHL. But the question is John Gibson good enough to break through and become a number 1 in Carolina versus in Edmonton, where it's probably a lot more guaranteed he'd be the number 1 guy? Unless, of course, they trade Pickard or something and they keep Skinner and Gibson as a tandem and they try, for some reason, to run a 1A, 1B with that. I mean, Skinner's cheap enough, I guess, that if you wanted to argue he could be a suitable backup, it's okay, but because he was already tasked with number 1 duty for the past few years, I don't really know if that works well to say, hey, we got a new guy, sorry, Skin, you're number 2 now. It doesn't really feel right. I don't know. I feel like he's earned that authority to be a number 1 goaltender, even though he's not really a great one. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this John Gibson Anaheim Ducks trade update. His preferences are revealed. It's the Oilers. It's the Canes. Is a trade coming? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.